I'm being evicted. Happy holidays to you too.
Those of you who are invested in my personal lore might remember how I'm now a few weeks behind on my payments for this room, which is why the hotel manager shut off my heating.
And my power. Lucky for me, I've got a backup source of electricity. The guy staying in the room next door. It's the season of giving, so I'm giving Mr. Rodriguez the opportunity to be a good person by not calling hotel management. Now that I've got my power back and I'm able to produce more videos for you guys, I want to treat you to something special because 2021 was a big year for us. Ever since I was a kid, I dreamed of being a YouTuber, and thanks to you all, we achieved over 1,000 subscribers
and became partnered with the YouTube program, meaning
I can finally call myself an official virgin because nothing screams celibacy like a video game review channel. I can also now call myself an official YouTuber, which is why I wanted my first video in this position to be a Christmas special. For YouTubers, subpar seasonal specials are kind of a time-weathered tradition, and I figured, what better way to celebrate a holiday about the immaculate birth of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ than by going to hell? Alright, you guys know the drill. I've never played Doom. It's got nothing to do with the fact that the games are demonic or whatever, and everything to do with the fact that I just don't play video games. I don't hate playing games or anything, I just really enjoy listening to other people talk about them, so I know all of the lore surrounding the games, from Dwayne TRJ to cats being burnt alive on a Sean Connery-themed website, but I don't know if the games are fun, and I think that's what really matters. And God, is it fun! I want to say the game begins unceremoniously, but I'm pretty sure you start the game in a ritualistic summoning, so I'll say it begins without wasting your time. I'm not kidding, I actually had to check online because I thought I skipped the beginning cutscene or something, but no, that's just how the game starts. A man with a sore throat reads you slam poetry and then you're given a gun. And that's when I knew I was gonna love this game. Now, I'm admittedly a man of very low intelligence, and I have the motor skills of a benzodiazepine addict when it comes to first-person shooters, so I completely fell in love with the combat in Doom. You aren't so much rewarded for calculated and precise gunplay as you are for up-close and personal firefights where physicality is just as encouraged. The combat is frantic, frenetic, and funny because you break people's legs. I can't write that, oh god. The first time I ripped someone's arm off and beat them to death with it brought a genuine smile to my face, and I really hope my future employers don't watch this video. Games don't usually get a physical reaction out of me, but I was legitimately grinning and laughing for like the entirety of the first level. It was borderline hellish euphoria. Of course, this wasn't the only emotional response these games got out of me, but we'll save that conversation for later. The game itself is so full of malice and hatred, and I love it. It is so violent in areas that don't even need to be. You crush power-ups, you dome the upgrade robot. I was half expecting Doom Guy to just punch through the computer screens rather than using them normally. It's kind of weird seeing him be this gentle. Doom 2016 also does God's work by skipping out on complicated lore and lets the gameplay and the presentation carry their weight. A huge part of the game's masterful presentation is thanks to the music, created by my favorite Australian with questionable facial hair, Mick Gordon. Industrial metal music to me usually sounds like several spoons in a garbage disposal, but the man with the landing strip on his chin was able to pull this soundtrack off perfectly. The music adds to the violence you see and hear, creating a cacophony of scene and sound. You aren't killing to a soundtrack, the music is part of the violence itself. It all blends together into one visceral experience. The music in Hell with the choral vocals was fantastic, and also probably the only thing about Hell that I liked, because Hell was incredibly underwhelming. I thought it lacked diversity. Not like we need to call HR lack of diversity, but like Soviet-era brutalist architecture lack of diversity. Everything kinda ended up looking the same, which is a really strange complaint. My trip to Hell shouldn't have the same visual diversity as a road trip to the heartland of America. Actually, now that I think about it, nothing's closer to Hell on Earth than Nebraska, so maybe you guys hit the nail on the head. All I really ever knew about Doom was that you go to Hell, so I thought that this was gonna be an incredibly horrifying and unique place, but it really wasn't all that interesting. I honestly think Mars had more visual diversity in their levels. Where are the lakes of sulfur? Where are the souls being tortured? Hell, I would have taken any of the 9 circles from Dante's Renaissance-era self-insert. I'm so desperate, I'm willing to go non-canonical because just bones and brimstone aren't gonna cut it. Hell also sucked, man. Hot take, I know, but my trip to Hell was inhumanely unbearable. The last half of this game sees a massive spike in difficulty. I know how you Doom fans get when someone complains about your games being hard, so before you leave a comment saying that I didn't fully appreciate the game because I'm bad at it, please know that you are absolutely right. I play games like Minecraft because they're calm, because I'm bad at any other type of game, but that's kind of the point of this channel. I'm just here to play new games and recount my personal experiences, and I personally experienced a lot of pain and anguish, especially at the hands of bosses like the Cyber Demon. Also, stop making me watch the boss's Monday Night Raw entrance animation every time I die. I thought we figured out not to do this like a decade ago. The game acts like it emphasizes fast-paced action, but then it makes you sit through its garbage over and over and over and over. Please let this be over. For the most part, I thought the arena sections were fantastic, but there were a couple areas where there were just a few too many close-range enemies thrown in, making it easy to get tripped up and knocked down fast. And while we're complaining, I was kinda disappointed with the final boss fight too. Robotilda Swinton turns into an 8-legged frontal lobe, which is visually interesting, but practically very, very boring. A boss fight should test you on every skill you've learned throughout the game, but there's very little skill involved in this final fight. Instead of using all the abilities you've developed, you just run in circles, draining your guns into Krang from TMNT 2016, which I guess is kind of fitting for a main character who's canonically more deadly with his fists, but uses guns anyways because he thinks they're fun, but that doesn't mean I'm having fun. So the boss fights might have been a little annoying, and the difficulty might have spiked like a Red Robin Lemonade in the last half, but when the stars align and you get that soundtrack playing as you fly across the map dismembering demons and blasting Beelzebubs, you're hard-pressed to find a better gaming experience. I absolutely loved Doom 2016. Now let's talk about Eternal. If Doom 2016 was the game that turned me into an industrial metal fan, then Eternal is the game that turned me into an Eminem fan, because it made me punch my walls and furniture. I wish I was joking. Like I said earlier, video games usually don't get a physical reaction out of me. I am not the kind of guy to get mad at video games, but this game brought out my inner gamer. It made me so unbelievably angry. Every level felt like it was stuffed with faster and more annoying enemies, with fewer shield and health drops. Arenas looked smaller, and I seemed to be getting trapped behind walls or crowded by demons that could drop my health in an instant with absolutely no opportunity to defend myself. I didn't feel like I was fighting against demons, I felt like I was fighting against the developers who were haphazardly stuffing random amounts of enemies into rooms and making boss fights with difficulty levels way beyond what any human would have been capable of handling. My absolute breaking point was when the game shoved me to some random boss fight against two tank-tread wheelchair demons who moved faster than the speed of sound and were protected by wave after wave of close combat enemies who would drop you instantly, and it made me so goddamn angry because there's no way they actually expected you to beat this, right? Because you'll be so incredibly close to killing both of them and fending off their minions, and then suddenly they'll just kill you because of some slam-dunk tomfuck. But then I got good at the game. I usually hate the get-good mentality some players have about their games, but in the case of Doom Eternal, you do kinda have to get good at the game. Eternal reworks aspects of 2016's combat system and places more emphasis on the chainsaw, on movement, and on new features like the ice grenades and the fire belch. There's so many things you could have called that. Anything but belch, please. You have to make use of the more acrobatic movement system and spend more time in the air to avoid taking damage, and you need to use your fire belch and ice grenades to control crowds and build up shields. The reason I felt like there were more enemies was because the developers did technically put more enemies in the areas, but not without giving you new ways to control the hordes. I had struggled with this game so much because I wasn't playing it right. I kept forgetting to dash or make use of my utilities, making me an easier target. Now, in some ways, I do kind of feel like I was set up for failure having played 2016 and Eternal back-to-back, because the combat systems are similar enough that you might autopilot into playing Eternal like you would 2016, which will only make your life a living hell. Didn't. But once I started playing the game as I was supposed to, I began to really love it. The game isn't perfect, alright, I can recognize that. It pauses the combat every 5 minutes of the first 2 levels to reveal enemies' hidden weak points, and tutorials are now done in some weird non-diegetic ways, which is annoying, but these are both really important for teaching you how to take down enemies. What was that? No, like actually, what was that sound effect? That's not the sound of someone's eyeball being torn out, that's the sound of a balloon animal being made. Doom 2016 had such a gritty and realistic feel, and Eternal feels like they're ripping soundbites from Scooby-Doo and renaming the file Hanna-Barbaric.wav. The monsters also look a little more cartoony. Probably not like Pixar cartoony, but maybe more Illumination animation cartoony because they seem to specialize in monstrosities. It's also more colorful, which I actually liked quite a bit. On top of all of this, the level lineup is way more diverse. You go to Earth, you go to Mars, you go to the UK, you go to the greatest version of hell I've ever seen. Look at this, man! Lakes of sulfur and tortured souls all in the same level? It's like a dream come true for me. Eternal introduces a lot of new stuff to the franchise. Some that I loved in concept and others that probably should have just stayed concepts. For example, Eternal broke new ground in gaming by adding an intergalactic space station hub that you provide power to. Eat your heart out, Rosalina. At first, I kinda hated the hub world because it felt like it just sort of unnecessarily padded out the game and took all the secrets that could have been expertly placed around the maps in one amateurishly designed location. But then I realized that that's exactly what it is and that I did really hate it. They act like it's here for that moment where demons invade, but that doesn't even go anywhere. The whole thing was completely superfluous. The game also brings a stronger emphasis on platforming. Doom Guy can now climb up walls made of paper cuts like an unskilled college grad can climb the corporate ladder at Daddy's Fortune 500. It's fluid, it's animalistic, and it really got on my nerves. Don't get me wrong, the platforming is a welcome addition to the game to break up the combat sections after the high-octane exhaustion that came at the end of Doom 16, but I felt like the controls were just a little scuffed. It's a bit of a problem if the sections that are supposed to be a break from the action make me just as angry as the action itself. So, did I hate Doom Eternal? My desk would say yes, but I'm actually a pretty big fan of the game. It's ambitious, it's a little overstuffed, but it builds off of what I already considered to be a fantastic game, so I had a really good time with it. But now I have to answer the ultimate question. Which game is better? Well, I have written down in my notes that 2016 is chicken and Eternal is steak. I feel like that doesn't require any further elaboration, but for the sake of you slower viewers, I'll dig in a little deeper. Doom 2016 is lean, light, and filling. It doesn't do a lot, but what it does do, it does well. There's not a lot of fat to trim off this game, and it makes for a fantastic quick meal. Eternal, on the other hand, or plate as it were, is a much larger helping. There's a lot more to it, and you can't just throw it on the grill and enjoy. You have to spend a little more time mastering the process to get it right, but when you do, it is great. It's got some trimmable fat, but not enough to ruin the meal. What I'm trying to say is that Doom Eternal is a fundamentally more complex game, but I think I just prefer the simplicity of 2016. I love and respect the ambition in Eternal's mechanics, but I just think I'd rather play a game that does one thing really well than a game that does a lot of new things pretty well. Both are great meats, definitely better than pork or dead-beaten horse, but in the end it all comes down to personal preference, and I happen to lean towards a position of poultry. It's fine if you like Eternal, I totally get it, but I just happen to not like how much work goes into steak, and maybe you don't like how dry chicken can be. This metaphor sucks. I'm gonna go steal food from Mr. Rodriguez. It's the season of giving, so I'm giving Mr. Rodriguez Rodriguez? Hell, I would have even taken... Every level felt like it was stuffed with faster and more annoying enemies with fewer I kept forgetting to dash or use my utilities, making me... What the... The game also brings a stronger emphasis on platforming. Doom Guy can now climb up walls made of paper cuts like an unskilled college grad can climb the corporate ladder at Daddy's Fortune 500. Why do I write like this? Oh my god.